the next symbol that we're looking at is the light, which came from the lantern, right? And this is my ugly little drawing of a lantern. It didn't turn out good. But anyway, so we're going to talk about what could, I'm going to use orange because, you know, it's kind of like the flame, okay? What could that light represent? So one of the main things he says is he talks about the light. First of all, everything is dark. Darkness, let's talk about darkness and what it could represent, okay? Darkness, if I say, well, I'm totally in the dark, explain it to me. That means that I don't know anything, that I'm unable to see the truth, right? If I'm in the dark, then I'm unable to see the truth. If I ask you to help me because I'm in the dark, explain it to me. I want you to give me information because I don't know what's going on around me, okay? So keep that in mind. Everything was dark. He talks about it. It's midnight. Everything's dark. And then he takes his lantern, and we know that this is going to be an important symbol because he says it over and over. That's that repetition, okay? So we see this lantern over and over again, and he talks about opening the handle, the little latch of the lantern so slowly. And the first night, he couldn't kill the first 7 nights, he said, I couldn't kill the old man because his eye was closed, and I didn't hate the old man, only his eye, right? So he couldn't kill him because of that. But on that 8th night, right? On 8th night, the light shines on he calls it evil eye, right? The light shines on that evil eye on that 8th night. He's able to see that eye. So the light shines. Let's think about that, okay? The light shines. Who knows what it says in the Bible about light? It said that we are the light of the earth, right? What does it mean when Jesus says that, you know, in the Bible, if we're talking religiously, when it says, be the light of the world, right? If we're lighting it up, we're giving it the truth, right? We're giving them knowledge and truth according to what the Bible says. So, or any other time, if I look at somebody and say, I don't understand what's going on, I'm in the dark, can someone shed some light on the situation? If I say that, we say shed some light, it means tell me the truth. Reveal the truth to me, right? Reveal the truth to me. So anytime you're reading literature and you see light being repeated over and over again, light is going to be symbolic for truth. It's the light. It gives you the answers. It's what you're able to see. If you have light, then you're able to see things. You're able to see the truth. So let's talk about that for a second. When he shone that light, what was he able to see? Let's go back to that first page of notes he did, right? I need to tear these out. What did he see when he shone that light? He saw this eye. And when he sees that eye, what does it remind him of? Death. And then he hears the heartbeat. And what does that remind him of? Death is coming for him. So when he shines that light, there's the truth of the situation. The truth that this narrator cannot avoid, which is death. Death is eventually coming for him. And every time he looks at that old man laying in that bed with that ugly old blue eye, it reminds him, crap, I can't avoid death. I'm going to die. So his biggest fear, the one thing that he is horrified of more than anything, his truth about what he's horrified more than anything is he is scared of dying. If you think about later on in the story, he says, many nights I sat up hearkening to the death watches in the wall. In another video, I told you that the death watches were those little bugs that they would hear in the wall. And technically, they just were bugs that ate, they were kind of like termites that ate wood. And when you would hear them, you know, click like that, it was really just their mating call, and they were just looking for them, a lady or whatever, right? But technically, long time ago, they thought when you heard those in the wall scratching, that it meant, watch out, death is coming for you. So he said he sat up at night listening for death. He'd sat up at night hearkening to death, which means listening. At the very beginning, he says, I heard many things in heaven and in earth. I heard many things in hell. He's thinking about this afterlife. He's thinking about death constantly. So when that light shines on that eye, he cannot avoid his truth, which is crap, I can't avoid death. Death is coming for me eventually. And he can't take it, and it makes him go crazy. And he finally does, ah! And he screams and he jumps on the old man and he kills him, right? But another little thing I want you to notice about it, which I really love. Oh crap, my thing froze. Right, maybe it's still working. I don't know, we'll see.
It wasn't working. So here's the other video. Hold on a second. Light.
Okay, so the computer went to sleep mode, but apparently it kept video. But anyway, so this is just part 2 of the light explanation. Another thing that I love, and it just dawned on me the other day, I had never made this connection before, but he alludes, he uses that simile. That's simile, okay? We know simile is when you use like or as to compare things, right? He says, the light shot out like the thread of the spider. And I thought that was kind of an interesting reference too, because what does a spider use its web and its thread for? It uses it to trap its prey, right? So at this moment, when that light shone directly on that eye, like the thread of the spider, it was the moment he had trapped his prey. When that eye was open and it landed on it, it was the moment for him to come and go ahead and kill that man. So I never noticed that until the other night when I was kind of reviewing the lesson to teach y'all, and I was like, oh, that was interesting. So see, learn new things every day. So we realized that deep down, his greatest fear, the one thing that he is horrified of, the thing that's driving him crazy, is that he doesn't want to die. He is horrified of death, and every time he looks at that old man, he thinks about dying. All right, the next thing is going to be the heartbeat, and then we'll be through with the symbolism. I love symbolism because it's kind of like cracking the code. I love to find things and be like, I wonder what that could be symbolic for. Like when I read the Bible, or like when I was watching Hamilton, and I was looking at the different colors of the clothes that they chose and things like that. All of those things were symbolic for things, so it's kind of like cracking a secret code to figure out what it means. So symbolism is like one of my favorite things. Okay, pause.
Last one, the heartbeat. Then we'll be through.
All right, y'all. The last thing we have to talk about is the bum, 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 the heartbeat. Don't ask me why I did the little drawings. I love to watch people draw, and I love to decorate my notes, so I figured, hey, why not? I could show y'all how I like to do it, and maybe it would influence you to, or inspire you to do it, whatever you want to do. I don't care. Okay, as long as you learn this stuff, I don't care if you decorate your notes or not. All right, so we got the heartbeat, right? It's repeated every time. It's very, very important. First time we see it is right before he kills him, and then the second time we see it is right before he confesses to the murder. So what could it mean? What could it symbolize, right? All right, so he says, the bird won't shut up, I'm sorry. So he repeats about the heartbeat, the boom boom, the low, dull, quick sound, much like a sound makes when enveloped in cotton. We already talked about all that, right? So this heartbeat, let's talk about who he was before he talked about the heartbeat, before he did the murder. All he did was talk about how good he was going to be at murdering. He had no emotions, okay? He was emotionless, right? He didn't even feel, he was very dehumanized, okay? He didn't feel human. He just kind of was like going through the motions. I'm going to kill this man. It has to be done. I can't look at the eye no more, so I've made up my mind to kill the old man. You won't believe how good I was at it. So there's no feeling. There's no emotions, right? There's nothing to make him human. And then we hear the heartbeat. The heartbeat, a heart is what keeps us human, right? Gotta have a heart. That heartbeat keeps you alive. It's what makes you human, right? Alright, it's what makes you human, to have that blood pumping through you, that heartbeat. And before he heard that heartbeat, he was just kind of this mechanical person that was going to kill this old man. But then the human side started to come out in him, and he heard the heartbeat, and we see this human part of him. And he gets really nervous. Now, he says it was the beating of the old man's heart. In the beginning, he tells us that he has this disease that had not dulled his senses, but made them more acute, which means made them sharper and better. And he says, above all was my sense of hearing acute. So he thinks in his head that he's hearing this old man's heartbeat. And that the heart's beating fast because the old man's getting scared, right? Because he heard him come in and he sat up in the bed and said, who's there? And all that, right? So he thinks it's the old man's heartbeat. And he's sitting there and he's like, all right, the guy's freaking out. I got to do it. His time has come. Now, let me ask y'all a question. Is it physically possible to hear another person's heartbeat in their chest if they are across the room from you and you don't have a stethoscope or anything like that? Absolutely not. It's not possible. But let me ask you this. Now, he does say, the very first thing he says is, the very first line of the whole story, true, nervous. Nervous. Very, very dreadfully nervous I have been and am. Well, why will you say that I am mad? That's what he says, right? He says how nervous he is. What happens to your heart when you start to get nervous? It starts to beat a little faster and a little faster. If you've ever had to do public speaking or perform or something like that, or maybe you got in trouble, had to go to the principal's office, or you were asking out a cute girl, something like that, right? Your heart starts to beat faster, faster, faster. And even if you get really, really nervous, I know with me, I can feel my ears pulsating with my heartbeat. Like my ears will get real hot and I'll feel my ears start to pulsate. And it's almost like you can hear your own heartbeat. So guys, keep that in mind, okay? So he hears the ba-boom, 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 and he screams and he kills the guy, and slowly it calms down, it calms down, it calms down, and then it goes away. And he says that the beating of the heart goes away because the old man is dead. Keep that in mind. Well, then we see it again at the end of the story. So this is during the murder scene, right? This is when he murders him, okay? At the end, we hear it again. That heart comes again, right? We hear the beat again. So why do we hear it then? He's starting to get nervous. He's all calm, cool, and collected, and he's bragging. He's very prideful. He's like bragging the whole time about how good he is at murdering this guy and how good he is at covering up when the police show up, right? So he talks, all of a sudden he starts getting nervous, and he says, I started to feel myself get kind of nervous. And then all of a sudden, again, we hear the heartbeat. Ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. And he thinks, oh crap, the old man's heart is not dead. It is beating underneath these floorboards where I buried him. I've got to get it out of here. I'm losing my mind. And he rips up the floorboards and he says, here is the beating of his hideous heart. So he thinks that it's still the old man's heart beating alive under the floorboards. But we know that he's crazy, which would be dramatic irony. When we know something that the character doesn't know. We know he's crazy, but he doesn't know it. So he thinks it's the heart beating. It's not the heart beating. What is it? It's his own heart. His nerves is making his heart beat faster and faster and faster. It's his own heart that he's hearing, not the old man's heart. So what does it symbolize? Well, right before he kills him, he gets real nervous and almost doesn't do it. But the only way to calm that nervousness, to get rid of that feeling, is to kill him. And then in the end, he hears it again. Ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. We got that nervousness again, right? And it comes again. Why? Because his human side is coming out. So if his humanity is saying, dude, don't do this. This is another human being. You don't have a reason to kill this dude. What is it that it symbolizes? It's his humanity coming out. So what could it symbolize? His guilty conscience. He feels so guilty at the end. He can't live. His humanity, that heartbeat, comes back in the end because it almost stopped him from killing him. His humanity his guilty conscience, humanity, almost stopped him from killing him, but then he quieted it down by killing him. And then in the end, his humanity came out again, his guilty conscience came out again, and he ended up screaming and confessing to the murder. And it's one of the greatest stories ever told in American literature. And I can remember being in Gifted and Talented when I was in the 5th grade, and my Gifted and Talented teacher took me to see a bunch of plays about Edgar Allan Poe, and I never forgot it, and it's always stayed with me. It's been one of my favorite stories ever. And so I hope y'all enjoyed reading it, and we'll talk a little bit more. And I sure hate that we're not in person to discuss it together, and so I can see your faces when you realize, oh, that's what that means. So deep down, what we learned today is this poor man, his biggest fear, he sees that eye, it reminds him that death is coming for him. His time is slowly running out, and he can't avoid it. The truth shines on that eye and shows him that he can't avoid death that's coming for him. Oh, and that was an ugly picture that didn't work out. And then the guilty conscience eventually, his humanity, his guilty conscience eventually causes him to confess to the murder. Such a good story. I hope you guys loved it, and I wish I was there with you, and I love you, and I want you to take this, don't lose it, study it, add it to your chart. Make sure you have this on your chart, because you guys are going to write your very first essay for my class is going to be explaining the symbolism in the telltale heart. So you guys have got to understand this and know what it means, okay? If you have any questions, email me or message me on Schoology. I love you. Study hard, and I'll see you soon. Bye.